past, present, and emerging.
The UNSW Postgraduate Council would like to say thank you for EDI, for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, and ARC staff for making this event happen. Moreover, we are really grateful for being a recipient of anti-racism grant.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We would like to introduce and thank our judging panel, who today we have Lucy Marshall, who is the Associate Dean for Equity and Diversity in the Faculty of Engineering.
We have Shelley here, who is the CEO at ARC UNSW, has more than 20 years experience working with student-led initiatives.
Michael Kelly, who specializes in leadership communication and who is the founder and director of the Kelly Communication Foundation.
We have Laurie Youmshajekian, who is an award-winning journalist who shares stories of local international news at ABC.
And finally, Andriana Simos, who is a digital journalist at the Greek Herald. Today we have a mixture of presentation media. We're going to be having live stories from the contestants that are here, and also to include our offshore postgraduates, we're going to have video submissions. Please enjoy. I would first like to open with Reem Asmari with the title, One Race, the Human Race.
If asked, where are you from? You might immediately think about the nationality of the passport you hold. But for me, the answer is different. As a child, my family had to leave my wounded country, Syria, due to the civil war. My parents made this difficult decision to provide me with a new life and all the opportunities I did not have back at home. It has been over 10 years since I have left. 10 years of hard work and trying to prove that I'm worthy of the opportunities in my new home. I felt vindicated when I was offered a position at my dream company, General Electric. It was a great feeling, especially when I passed the interview. However, and sadly, once they knew I'm not a citizen, my offer was withdrawn. Devastated, all I could think of was Debke, a simple line dance that forces people to stand shoulder to shoulder to show equity and that we all deserve to be happy. On your own, you look ridiculous, but with a line of 30 people, you are surrounded by joy and a sense of belonging. All I could think, why couldn't my new home accept me in the same way? I took this act of discrimination as a challenge upon myself, not to give the prejudice of others the power to determine the next stages of my life. From then on, I embraced my independence and started a new pursuit of a new dream and what I called a better home. Before Australia, my journey took me to 7 different countries. No matter where I was, I felt out of place, each time for a different reason. I stood out because of my faith, my cultural identity, and even my appearance. But then I came to realize that other people stood out for the same reasons. Traveling the world taught me how to appreciate diversity and reminded me of the Debke dance. A community that accepts and values diversity is the Debke I cherish. It's what I have built here in my tiny bubble. I have connected a line of people from all walks of life ready to support each other in the pursuit of happiness and their dreams. From now on, it's not a passport that defines my home anymore. It's where I feel appreciated, accepted, loved, and safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next contestant shared a video. Ria Asih.
Hi, my name is Ria. I'm a Muslim woman living for almost 30 years in Indonesia. I had no idea about being highly privileged. In my home country, I could easily perform congregational prayers, access abundant halal products, and gain public acceptance. The acts of religious persecution toward the minority groups never bothered me because I was never impacted. Moving to Australia in 2016 made me very anxious. I only knew Australia from mainstream media and people's stories. I believed that as a big city, Sydney had the most ignorant people, intolerant environments, and a vibrant nightlife that did not concur with my belief. Nothing was scarier than losing the privilege I had in my home country at that time. But this is a story about my self-discovery. Over days, I kept discovering that Sydney has always welcomed me in the warmest way possible. Friends and lecturers tolerated my praying times, which a test once was rescheduled due to the Friday prayer. After the Christchurch attack, I was very scared and afraid to go alone somewhere, but strangers offered to walk with me and guide me while I was praying in public places. I was especially moved by the UNSW Students' March in front of the main library to speak against racism. I felt safe and respected. It put me in shame that I had never done such to the minority groups in my home country. I learned about tolerance alright, but it was a thing I never applied. I came to realize that it was not enough to not bother. In building tolerance, small gestures do matter.
So yes, we were just clapping to a screen, but we should still show respect for the people that are sharing their stories. The next is also a video submission from Badi Uzaman with the title, The Arduous Journey and a Dream.
Hello everyone. I wish I could tell my story in front of you people live, but unfortunately, due to the travel restriction, right now I am standing in Bangladesh. And this is a story about a Bangladeshi boy, the difficult journey of a Bangladeshi boy. I believe at the end of my story, many of you guys will get rid that yes, it is possible to deal with many difficulties, even unprecedented difficulties. The story began from a remote place in Bangladesh. So remote that it got electricity in 2016. And during my time, while I was in the school, I can remember that electricity, it was a fascinating and luxurious commodities to us too. And I got little chance during my school and college to read under the electricity. So I think you can realize the remoteness, the situation, the position of my village. Difficulties, disability, I did something difficult for me. When I was in school, I faced a severe accident, and due to lack of treatment, it was not natural disability or by-born thing. Due to just lack of proper treatment, I got a permanent disability in my right leg, so I cannot run and I cannot walk normally. It added more challenging situation for me. It was so frustrating because people started calling me lame. I completed my school with very bad score. It was average score, so everybody expected something better from me, even my family. But due to the situation, due to the surroundings and my personal activities, I couldn't achieve the good result, and therefore I switched myself to technical and vocational. And from there, then I started studying diploma in engineering. So it is not the mainstream education in Bangladesh. Usually, poor people or people from underprivileged situation, they studied in TVET sector and then do some job to earn some money. But I have big dream. So after doing my diploma, I started a job in an institute. It was just a growing institute in that time in 2007. And simultaneously, I was continuing my higher study. Like I did my bachelor in electrical and electronic engineering. And simultaneously on the institute growing up, we worked very hard. So parallelly, I completed my masters. And in the meantime, the owner of that institute promoted me as the executive director. And right now, the institute has 3,000 students in Bangladesh, which is the second largest among all private institutes in this country. And I am running this institute. And along with that, we define a different model. The institute have some production area. The institute owns some factories. We have 2 different factories. We produce goods, and our poor students, they sometimes get the opportunity to work there, and they can earn some money, also help their family and help their study. So this is the way how I deal with it. And I said that I had big dream. That's why I always try to keep searching opportunities, and I got the opportunities at Scientia as a Scientia PhD scholarship receiver in 2019. So it added something more to me. Right now, I can say my friends and my surroundings that yes, disability or any other difficulties, it failed to suppress me. So this is my story. I believe that disability or any underprivileged situation cannot suppress someone if he or she has a big dream. I believe that dream always keep pushing the guy to achieve his goal. That's all. I hope you enjoyed my story. Bye bye.
We would like to thank all offshore students who still decided to participate and get closer to our community here. So the next story is Jie Fan with a story titled Gifts Giving and Receiving in Chinese Culture.
What's this? Gift. Like many countries, in China, gifts are given to show respect, love, friendship, and gratitude. Thanks to the influence of Confucianism, it involves complex etiquette, formality, and reflects China's social value and belief. Normally, China refuses gift a few times before eventually accepting it. Such a seesaw battle between gift giver and the recipient may take several turns, which implies the use of some mind, eye, mouth, facial expression, and even body language to accomplish the challenging task. Imagine if you are going to visit your Chinese girlfriend's father for the first time, how to give the gift properly. Here's the correct way to do it. Uncle, I bought nothing, only 2 bottles of wine to show respect. Please take it. God, isn't frightfully expensive. You shouldn't have spent so much money on me. A small something for you, not much money. I'm fine. I don't need anything. You know, these are foreign wine made in Australia. Australia is a country of longevity in the world. You know why? For what? Because Australians drink wine every day. I think it's good for your health. Ha 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 ha, but it's really too much, too much. Uncle, it's a token of my regard. Please take it. Okay, I'll take it. But the next time, don't buy any gift for me. Otherwise, I won't be happy. The denial of the gift, the reluctant acceptance seemed to be ungracious and implied in English conversation. However, it reveals China's face issue. On the one hand, the gift giver wants to make sure the gift given successfully so as to avoid losing his face. On the other hand, the gift recipient seeks to maintain the gift face and also to show his polite, generous, and humble. In addition, the principle of balance is behind the context advocated by Confucianism to achieve social harmony. It involves attending to the other's face, one's design, and the maintenance of positive image. Failure to recognize this social norm will lead to misjudgment of pragmatic value and principle. So, next time, if a Chinese friend gives a gift to you, how to receive properly? Remember, use both hands to receive the gift, and please reject a few times before eventually accepting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jai, for explaining how difficult it is to do something so simple like give a gift. We would next like to invite Fatima Iqbal, who will be talking about the story of three sisters.
You all have seen iconic Three Sisters, but today you're going to hear my story about three sisters. An ancient Greek philosopher named Epictetus said the words, "Whatever happens in your life, how you choose to react to it matters." 2020 has done truckload of it. We all have faced so many challenges. But I do believe whatever is happening around you, how you choose to react to it really matters. Okay, to unpack this for you, I need you to take with me to 1992. 1990s were the decade of nicer music and front bangs in Pakistan. I also used to have those front bangs, which I think was the only best thing happening with me in 1990s. One summer morning, me and my elder sister were sitting with my father in a hospital lobby. My mother was undergoing a surgery, and we both were just thinking about her. Suddenly, I saw my aunt coming towards my father. I stood up. I turned towards her to ask about my mother. I don't know if words came out or not, because that was the moment when bomb was out. I still remember the incredible screaming in my head. And I can just feel the painful rushing sensation in my body that I was falling. Everyone was screaming around me because my mother gave birth to another girl. Yes. Our whole life was a complete hell. When we were going to school, we used to hear some comments from people of the small town where I was living. And those comments were ranging from mildly rude to severely hurtful and mean. I can still recall during our childhood, my grandfather used to give cookies to only my cousin brothers, and as a child, we sisters were deprived of his love. But this was not the only drama. "Oh, you have another girl? I feel so pity for you. Try one more time, you will have one boy." "What? You are selling your assets for her university fee? Are you crazy?" "Be extra cautious. You don't know how people are going to see her in public. Teach her how to wash clothes and dishes, because this is what she's going to do in future." I used to fight with my father that why don't you say anything? And he always said to us, "You are my hope. One day you will be hope for others." Actually, this sentence from my father made me excited. And my father is actually a hope for me. He not only transformed our lives, but he gave us a magic wand of hope. He gave us wings to fly. And today, we three sisters are doctors. And we are spreading the hope among our patients. Even all of my cousin sisters are doing the same to be contented and hopeful. Ladies and gentlemen, I received 3 gold medals. I'm a STEM ambassador in Pakistan. I am a champion of women in maths and science, and I'm doing my PhD in one of the top universities in Australia. Moreover, I'm standing right in front of you and spreading hope. Life is supposed to be filled with obstacles. It is supposed to be filled with ups and downs. And it is also supposed to have more daughters, right? But life is also supposed to have brightness, beauty, joy, and hope. Thank you so much for listening to me. This story has no end because my hope is endless. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing the story. Our next contestant, Raisa Islam, with the title Daughters of Dispossession.
Thank you. My story is one of grief that is ingrained in all women's bones. Looking at me now, standing here all plucked and preened, you would never know I spent this week utterly alone with a lot of grief and couch surfing. But though I live daily with pain so intense that it bubbles up through my chest and pollutes my brain, I refuse. I refuse to make suffering my identity. Even after nights of trembling on the bathroom floor, with my mum trying to rip the door off its hinges, enraged, afterwards I smile. I say that I'm okay, because women like us do not have the luxury of disappearing into dust. Being a young Bengali woman in a house where gender-based violence is very much normalized, there is no option but resilience and survival. Interwoven into the microcosm of our family home were aftershocks of a 200-year colonization, erasing our culture, our verbal history, and our song. Outside the home, I lived as a Muslim woman in a post-9/11 world, which in itself was very much a political act. Inside the home, I managed explosive parents who used my very existence as justification for their anger. But how can I blame them? They were born amongst the rubble of a fresh nation too fatigued for a feminist revolution. Daily, I screamed into the void. Was I such an abomination? Like my mother, I was terrified to take up space. I mimicked her silence, her subservience, lest the world discover our shame. I could never understand how my father would twist the bones in my arm and look into my terrified eyes and not hurt inside as well. Empathy and sacrifice for women like us, it wasn't optional, it was inbuilt. The glorification of strength and resilience in brown women detracts from the very reality of our suffering. It arises from living in an unjust system that was made without us in mind. In adulthood, my energy is consumed by unlearning this silence, unlearning this shame, because suffering is not my identity. Transforming this heartbreak into art heals the fragments of my fatigued soul, and I am a proud Bangladeshi woman. I am a daughter of dispossession, no longer silent, in honor of those who do not have a voice.
Thank you so much, Raisa. Thank you so much for sharing your story of your strength. The next story is an example of how we can all tell about ourselves, and it doesn't always have to be through verbal. The next is going to be Swarali, who'll be performing a dance.
Before I start my performance, I would like to introduce you to what I'm going to do today. As we all know, the name of this event is Tell Me Your Story. Therefore, I'm going to tell you a short story of Kathak. Katha kahe so Kathak kehlavi. is a famous Hindi wording in India that says that the one who tells story is a Kathak dancer. I've been learning Kathak for over many years now, and I would like to show you a glimpse of what Kathak is. Originated in the northern part of India, Kathak has been blessed by many devotees all over the years, and today is recognized as one among the 8 Indian classical dances. I'll be showing Ganesh Vandana, basically praying Lord Ganesh, a Hindu god. We Indians always believe that before starting any auspicious ceremony, we should pray to God. So we already have started, but in Hindu mythology, it is also said that Lord Ganesh is said to be the Lord of wisdom and the Lord of art. I think it's very significant to pray him today, as this event is of culture, art, and wisdom. So without taking much time, I would like to start my performance.
Wow. How are you all feeling after this beautiful performance? We have so many more stories to share, and some of them through the videos and some of them in person. And we have more performances to be presented. The next participant is Joshua Karas.
I am ancient, I am new. I am ethnic, I am true blue. As an Australian Egyptian, Egyptian Australian, I define my identity by the cultural influences of some of the planet's oldest and newest nations. I am honoured to have the blood of the pharaohs in my veins and the inspiration of the Anzacs in my deeds. But it hasn't always been like this. Growing up as a brown boy in a white country was not an ideal environment to freely explore my personal and cultural identity. I did not enjoy the soccer like the other Coptic Sunday school kids, but I also didn't go surfing with the rest of my school friends. I was a part of two worlds, which meant that for a long time, I belonged to neither. And I'm not the only one. I am not special in this struggle, especially to many of you in this room. It was my inaugural trip to Egypt that finally catalyzed the change in me I didn't know I so desperately needed. Standing in the suburb-sized shadow of the Great Pyramids of Giza, with the cool evening air drifting from the mighty Nile River, perfectly complementing the intense desert sun and azure Arabian sky, two things happened in close succession. First, I burst in pride and respect for my native country, ancient and established, and a new and more intimate understanding of who I was and where I come from was born. Second, the adoration and gratitude I had for my gorgeous home Australia, dewy-eyed and hopeful, was heightened and reinforced. I finally knew what it meant to be an Australian Egyptian. And it extends so much further than belonging to just two countries. And it's this. I'm so excited to share. I say the following from my heart of hearts. We are not just Australian. I am not just Egyptian. You are not just Vietnamese, or Kenyan, or European, or Central American. I am, and always will be, bound to the culture of global citizenship. I belong to the world, and the world belongs to me. We are responsible to each other. I expect to live in a fair, safe, and sustainable world, and I'm simultaneously responsible for building that world. It absolutely kills me that this concept can come across as cliched and fanciful. We are living in unprecedented times. For the first time in history, dozens of cultures can speak and sit in the same room. Such an experience means the world to me, literally. We should honor, commemorate, and celebrate our bright and beautiful cultures, of course. They are fundamental to who we are and who we will become. But for me, above all else, we are custodians of the world in its entirety. When the day is done, it must be known that we the peoples ferociously strive to be better to ourselves, to each other, and to our world. We are common, we're unique. We were silent, now we speak. Thank you.
Thanks. Our next contestant shared the video. So it's Sandy Laakson on Shireen.
Good evening. Like everyone here, I have many sources of personal identity. But a part of my identity, which is as important to me as it is misunderstood, is that I am a military spouse. I'm resilient, I'm strong, so it may seem strange to you that my biggest fear is a knock at the door. Let me explain. Once upon a time, a wandering woman confidently stumbled across a rare specimen, a really great guy. He was great, things were great, and then he was gone. He was deployed with the Australian Defence Force to a combat zone in the Middle East. And for me, that wasn't great. It was hard. My partner was away for months and months. I missed him and I worried about him. And then the fridge broke, and the car, and the dog. And I had to handle it. The bills and the admin, the birthday and wedding invites, I had to manage it and attend on my own for the both of us. When he donned the army slouch hat, I had many hats to wear in his absence. We'd be able to talk occasionally, but often not for days. And in those moments especially, the worst thing someone could do to stress me out is drop in unannounced and knock at my door. The reason is that in the ADF, if a person is killed in action or training, the way that families are notified is by a knock at the door. A bereavement team will be standing there to give the family the tragic news. So when my husband is away, I dread an unexpected knock at the door. Over 85,000 Aussie families are current serving defence families. They have similar experiences. It's a reality not very well understood by the general public. I'm hoping that by sharing my story today, it gives a glimpse into that world, the benefits and the costs of serving secondhand. There are impacts on our location, our housing, careers, relationships, and personal health. But there's also a wealth of opportunities resulting from this unique culture and community. We check in on you, send care packages, take you out for dinner if you've had a rough week, connect you with new friends and services if you've moved interstate with another military posting. When they're away, we'll always text or call before dropping in. And when they get home, we know to give it a week or two before dropping in. I had no idea how irrevocably the military family culture would change the course of my life, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Thank you.
Thank you to Sandy for sharing her experiences as a second-hand server. I would like to invite our next speaker, Kevin Lamanta.
I believe I'm not the only person standing in this room who have ever thought that I am different. People will sometimes point out to us a feature of ourselves that they're not happy with in a not so good way. That would leave us feeling inferior, be it, for example, the way we look, or the way we dress, or the way we talk. And that happens all the time. Growing up in Indonesia, in a small town in Indonesia, has created a version of me who were afraid to stand up for myself when bullied, because simply I look different. I was not really happy with all those bullyings, but I didn't really mind because of one thing, and that was mathematics. Well, there are many reasons why I am thankful that I found my love in mathematics at such an early age. One of those is that I'm standing here pursuing my PhD in mathematics with only 1 year to the finish line. But another reason that I didn't realize until recently is that mathematics gave me a sense of belonging. I was accepted by friends simply because I could do things that they couldn't. And eventually I gained friends, real friends from it. Mathematics became my safe space, which is something that my world would revolve around. But it's not all rainbow. Because, I wasn't exposed much to many things in life because I was too comfortable doing mathematics. For example, I wish I had found more community, or maybe being in a relationship more often. And these past few years has given me an ample amount of time to think more about myself and ponder about my life choices. And for the first time in my life, I started to doubt myself, started to doubt my life choices. And, people my age in our culture, they're supposed to be on the right way to getting married, or they have a stable job. And I have none of those at the moment. And the past few years have given me much time to actually think about my life, and it was a trying year for me to deal with. I got depressed, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely alone, with no one seemingly able to understand me. Wanting to be understood is one of the most basic human needs. But if there is one thing that I learned during those trying years, is that it is impossible for you to want that craving to be satisfied if you are not able to understand yourself and make peace with yourself. I believe the steps to life are simple and shouldn't be made complicated. It is only after you start accepting yourself and are proud of it will good things in life happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next participant, we would like to welcome on stage Joshua McCluskey.
When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. It's optimistic advice about taking what you have and making it into something better. Unfortunately, there's more in lemonade than just lemons. And if you don't have any concept of what lemonade tastes like, you can hardly be expected to go and find those ingredients for yourself. Let me tell you about my story, my journey from lemons to lemonade. I was born on a Maltese missionary ship run by an American organization in Danish waters to New Zealand parents, and spent most of my first decade in North and West Africa. So culturally, I'm very confused. Age 10, my family moved to New Zealand. As the son of evangelical missionaries, I was taught to hold on to a very dogmatic set of beliefs. Most of those were religious, but they also extended to bigoted ideas like Western supremacy, misogyny, and racism. Age 16, I escaped what had become a very abusive home and left school to support myself. And for 5 years, I bounced from dead-end job to make rent and buy food. During that time, I became very bitter and very angry, and unfortunately had brought my worldviews with me. At 21, I decided to make a desperate escape, and I joined the Navy. For the first time in my adult life, I stood shoulder to shoulder with people from different ethnic backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, and they weren't what I thought they would be. And they treated me with a kindness that I didn't expect nor deserve. That made me look at those lemons I was holding and think, maybe there's a different way to eat these. Maybe there's something else I can do. I held on to that thought, and 3 years and a deployment to Somalia later, I left the Navy for university. Let me tell you that without secondary schooling, chemistry is really, really hard. But still, I stuck at it. And learning biology changed me. Whatever was left of my negative worldview after the Navy was completely destroyed by my understanding of science. It turns out that a comprehensive understanding of how humans all evolved from a single-celled organism is really effective at making you realize where you fit in the grand scheme. I'm now in the third year of my PhD, and the lemonade tastes great. I think it's important to remember that there are many, many people out there who are lost with their lemons, like I was, and have no idea what to do with them. So all of us in this room who know what the lemonade tastes like need to share that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. I'm not sure if I was the only one there thinking chemistry was really hard, like really, really hard. Yeah. I'd like to invite Salma with the title, Who Am I Really?
On the 15th of October 1994, I was born and given a name, a nationality, and a race. Just like all parents, my parents were obsessed with whom I resemble. And when growing up, everyone was trying to shape my personality with characteristics: smart, cute, or sensitive. But I wanted to discover my real identity. Do you ever find yourself asking, who am I really? You are not alone. I was fresh out of school, embarking on my adulthood journey, when I found myself terrified at the thought of identity and belonging. I felt lost. I lost myself. I needed to belong to feel as part of something bigger than myself, but I was drowning into questions. I am Lebanese, but the most comment I hear is, you're different from all the Lebanese I know. I don't know what they mean, but I was always looking for my tribe into the Lebanese society. I don't even like hummus or fattoush. I am Australian, but when requesting a document, the first question would be, what type of visa you're on in Australia? I don't fully fit into the Australian community. I can't even swim. It's not that I don't love Australia or Lebanon. It's that I feel falling into an in-between zone where I don't match either cultures or lifestyles. I started breaking down my own life to know who I am. I love writing and social work, but I'm pursuing a PhD in chemical engineering. I'm Muslim. I wear hijab, but I'm kind of awkward to religious people and too religiously restricted to non-believers. I'm too shy. It took me 1 month to speak to my Arab colleague. Hi, Muhannad. While I stand here today in front of a huge audience giving a talk. I'm brave. I jumped out of a plane for skydiving, but a cockroach scares the hell out of me. The questions remain. Who am I really? Where do I belong? Am I a real scientist? Am I even shy or brave? All I know is the answers we seek are buried within our heart. What if the longing I feel is an invitation to belong to myself, coming home to myself, and being secure with myself? Our identities, cultures, and belonging are formed within ourselves. So, who am I really? Hello, I'm Salma. I am myself, and I belong to myself.
Thank you, Salma. Our next contestant shared a video with us, Vita Dwiramani.
Hi, I'm Vita Dwiramani from School of Education. Now I'm going to tell you my story. But before that, let me ask you one thing. What is the most boring activity for most of the people? Do you know that? Yes, that's true. Waiting. But do you know that all the Muslim people are not getting bored to wait for something? Yes, that's waiting for iftar. Iftar is time for the Muslim people to do a break fasting after a whole day fasting. And every country has special unique things in waiting for iftar. In Indonesia, in my home country, we have a special tradition that's called ngabuburit. Ngabuburit comes from Sundanese language. That's one of the traditional language in Indonesia. And it has meaning waiting for fun. Yes, many fun activities can be done during this ngabuburit time. Maybe some people will keep praying, reading Holy Quran, cooking and preparing some meals for iftar, or even visiting a temporary market. Before the pandemic, it's very easy to find this special market, and the seller will sell various unique food, refreshment, and drinks which never been sold except on Ramadan. However, it's quite hard to find this as the pandemic do not allow people to gather many people at one time. However, the Ramadan will finish soon. But me personally, I'm still doing ngabuburit. But ngabuburit for Australia. Yes, since I'm the international student I mean, who is taking the PhD in School of Education, I'm still doing some fun activity while not waiting for the iftar, but waiting for the border, the international border, to be lifted. My school has offered with various activities such as seminars, training, sharing session, and many others engagements, activities that allow me to wait in fun. So guys, for those of you, the international students who are still waiting for the border to be lifted, let's ngabuburit, waiting for fun by having some fun activities. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you, and hopefully we can touch down in Sydney in a very short time. See ya.
Thank you, Pita. Before we saw a dance from Sorali, and as she told us, that was traditional to the northern parts of India as she learnt it. Now we have a dual performance, another dance performance from Sahana and Shilipa. And this time, this is a traditional performance celebrating the Tamil culture, which is from the south of India. Thank you. Just that, but I didn't realize you guys wanted to. Please, if you have more to add, please.
There's really nothing to add. Well, hi, everyone. I think Shilpa and I will be performing a little piece today, which is actually the song that is the national anthem, not national anthem, state anthem for Tamil Nadu. So it basically just highlights some key features like the land, the water there that they're really proud of, the rich culture and history they're proud of, things like why we wear the little spot in the middle of our forehead, how we celebrate the sun rising, and that's called a festival called Pongal. And I think the ending basically describes how unity within the culture and between cultures is the main strength for us. Thank you.
such a beautiful performance. We actually felt all those waters and rivers and mountains right here next to us. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Moyen Sifuri with the title, Be Beautiful.
Hi, this is me. Am I not beautiful? A humble pottery piece. This guy, wait a second. This guy has made me from recycled clay, once being trashed. I was first wedged fiercely and then shaped gently into this form before being exposed to a high firing temperature. Not only once, but for a couple of times. Still, I'm beautiful. Am I not? He purposely glazed me to be satin white, but I turned out to be attractively freckled, portraying the harsh environment in which I was made. He adores me the most, not that I'm merely his work, but because I'm perfectly imperfect. I grew up believing that in order to be taken seriously, or to be accepted, or even to be liked, I needed to be the best, and just being myself was never enough. So there was this constant pressure I put on myself to morph into a persona that translates very well to the ideal of my peers and my family. But something was deeply wrong. That wasn't me at all. So eventually, I lost it. I was overwhelmed with anxiety, sometimes shame of not delivering the best. I ended up giving up on my dreams easily, becoming so indifferent. Took me lots of time until I realized that is an exhaustive way to live. We all need to understand we all have differences, imperfection, and that's the beauty of us, isn't it? In a time that so much within us and around us is seeking for perfection, we all need to start with ourselves. We need to accept our imperfections, just like this little vase that failed to be white, but it came out perfectly imperfect, beautiful, with all of its flaws. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing. We would like to next invite Pallavi, who has the inspiring title, I Finally Decided to Speak Up.
I have finally found the courage to speak up. For all of my life, I've been told to not talk about these things outside of the family, but now I feel like I have to. I must have been 7 or 8 years old. My school had sent home some complaint about me, and because of that, I was dreading going back home. Sorry. As I arrive, he answers the door, and he lets out a sinister laugh jokingly and says, "Welcome to Kala Pani." For those of you that might not know, Kala Pani was a cellular jail, an offshore prison in colonial India, which was known for its inhumane torture methods. For me, my own home was being compared to a torture prison, and as a child, I was terrified to death as I stepped in the house. As I go in, behind locked doors, I first get slapped several times hard across the face. I then get dragged to the back of the house. My hands get tied up behind me. I get lifted from my feet, and I'm suspended in a water tank upside down for several seconds. And then I'm taken out. And then while I'm still gasping for breath, I'm dunked again and again and again. And this wasn't a one-off incident. I've lived frequent episodes of severe physical violence throughout my childhood. My dad used to live in another city for his job, and the rest of my family would try to help me, but they would also get beaten and shoved around. So my current partner is the first person that I shared all of this with who was outside of the family. And it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I cried so much that night. And then I shared this story with my childhood friend, my best friend from college, and I received so much love and support. And some of them then felt comfortable enough to share their stories of physical and sexual abuse with me. Sharing these experiences sets you free. It empowers you, and it provides strength for others to be able to speak up about it. So I'm here to tell you today, share your story, talk about it. It doesn't matter with who. It can be a friend, partner, a therapist, anyone that you can trust. And finally, the last thing I want to say is, tell your kids to be kind to that one kid in their school who sits by themselves, eats their lunch alone, is failing all of their subjects. It's possible they're not just some weirdo. They're fighting some really hard battles in life. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Pallavi, for opening up your heart. Our next person to present on this stage, Alisa Tran, with the title, Criticize Who? Criticize Who? Critical what? Sorry.
Not critical enough. Again, critical what? Criticize who? Oh, you mean critical thinking? But what is it? 16 years ago, I came to UNSW to do my bachelor's degree as an international student from China. I was excited. Back home, I was top 20 student in a province of 20 million people, and English was my best subject. I thought I'll thrive, but I barely survived. In my first year, I was getting passes and low credits. And the most common feedback for my essay was not critical enough. I was confused. For all my life, I've been taught to listen to my teachers, remember everything my textbook said, and never ever question them. The word critical thinking was everywhere, but it was never clearly explained to me. The worst part was, I was often the only international student in the room, and everyone else seemed to know what they were expected to do. I felt stupid and helpless. By the start of my second year, I got a pass conceded, meaning almost fail. I had to do something. So I told myself for a few nights and finally had the courage to knock on my tutor's door. Sir, what do you mean that I'm not critical enough? I'm so glad I made that conversation. Turned out, I didn't have to criticize anyone to be a critical thinker. Instead, my tutor told me to reason, examine arguments, and look at things from different perspectives. I followed his advice and got my first distinction. He also told me critical thinking means different things in different contexts, and he encouraged me to seek help for my other courses too. I did that too. More distinctions and high distinctions followed. By the end of my program, I was invited to do an honors degree. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't knock on that door. But you know what? Not many international students knock on that door. In fact, many leave this university without knowing what critical thinking actually is. How do I know? I've worked with hundreds of them in the past 12 years as a casual academic at UNSW. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here in the same room, but that doesn't mean we've traveled the same path to be here. We speak the same language, but that doesn't mean we understand the words the same way. International students need to speak up, and they need to be heard. So let's put aside assumptions and have a real conversation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alisa, for your powerful words. Next, we would like to invite Anna, who is having a talk titled Beauty in Diversity.
Amma, were you sad that I was born with this color? That was the question I asked my mother 17 years ago. Today, I would like to share with you my experience with colorism. Growing up in a South Asian brown community, I was made to believe from a very young age that fairness is celebrated. If you were fair, you were beautiful, successful, and you were happy. Although my family never once made me feel inadequate about the way I looked, society painted a very different picture. I remember watching fairness cream advertisements on TV as a young girl, and there was one that particularly stuck with me. I'm sure most of you in this room who are from South Asian brown communities remember the infamous Fair and Lovely ad. In this advertisement, they show an arranged marriage scenario where the boy's family comes to see the girl. But to their horror, the girl is dark. So the boy says no. That girl, feeling dejected, looks into the mirror and wonders what is wrong with her. Then walks in her mother with a bottle of Fair and Lovely's cream, the solution or the magical solution to all her problems. 3 weeks later, the same family comes to visit the girl again. And this time, they say yes. Why? The girl is now 3 shades lighter. Wow, what a beautiful story. From the mere age of 7, I was conditioned to believe that my dark skin is a flaw. And this cultural conditioning continued even as I went to high school, where I was constantly made fun for the way I looked and my skin tone. But there was one incident that completely broke me. And that was when I was 13 years old and I was participating in a group reading competition where I was up for a solo part. But just when I was about to speak, the boy behind me yelled, "Oh, look, Blackie is going to read," followed by a burst of laughter. I went quiet. Choking back tears, I looked at my teacher and I said, I did not want to do this anymore. That incident, as a young teenage girl, completely shattered my confidence. I went on to become a national-level debater, a public speaker, and even a first-class honors student. But when I looked in the mirror, I never felt that I was enough. This affected every area of my life, including my relationships and my friendships, as I continued to settle for less, never believing that I deserved more. It took me a long time to break out of my shell and realize that beauty comes in many forms, sizes, and colors. Moving to the UK and Australia was a game changer for me, where I finally learned to love myself for who I am. I met someone who actually loved the fact that I was dark. And I had people coming up to me saying that they wish they had my skin tone, which was pretty exotic. I still find that really amusing to this day. But this showed me that I am beautiful. And I'm so grateful for more representation in social media, with social media influencers from South Asian communities showing us that fairness creams should not be promoted, but instead, we should promote self-acceptance and confidence. I remember what Sindhu, one of my favorite social media content creators, told me at an event. Look at us, we're goddesses. And now, when I look in the mirror, that's what I see. Our culture may not always be ideal, but it doesn't have to stay that way. Together, we can bring change, one person at a time. Today, when I look in the mirror, I know that my dark skin is not a flaw to be hidden, but a gift to be celebrated. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Our next presenter on this stage is Danladi Yunana, with the title, I Grew Up Many Places Behind.
If you think of life as a journey, then there are many reasons your journey might become harder. But let's face it, where you are born should not be one of those reasons. Because bad places are like an outcome from rolling a dice. You can't control it. One lesson I have learned to control my journey is to get an education. I grew up many places behind. I was born to a fishing family in a small village in Nigeria, paddling canoe, casting nets, and I stayed out of school. But my story is not unique. In many ways, this is the fate of many young people in Africa. There are many paces behind their peers on the other side of the divide. To get ahead, they have to overcome hurdle after hurdle. From that little boy who cannot afford to dream because of the disappointment that comes with that, to that girl who stays out of school to hawk on the street. I was lucky. When my parents agreed that I split my time between fishing and schooling, I began walking an hour every day to get to school. Even though I began paces behind, getting started set me on the path where determination led to my graduation as an engineer from the UK. You hear of stories where 1 out of 5 kids are out of school. When I think about that, I was one of them. But sadly, that depends on where you are born. But it doesn't have to be this way if we, humanity, make a different choice. That is why I started a mentoring program to help young Nigerians get ahead. Every Saturday morning, I connect with these young people over Zoom. I listen to them, I counsel them, and I point them to resources. Through this initiative, I have reached over 200 young people, reverted over 50 school dropouts, and lifted over 10 kids off the street and into the classroom. But this is just the starting point. I don't know about you. For my part, as a little boy, walking an hour to school to doing a PhD, I want to live to see a world where no one's journey becomes harder just because of where they are born. Thank you.
Thank you, Danladi. Give this to the people as well, no conflict. Thank you, Danladi, for sharing. You're truly visionary. Okay, guys, we're up to our last talker, but definitely not least. I'd like to introduce Ramin Zada. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So, when I got shortlisted to tell my story here today, I immediately started looking for ways to make my story sound grand and spectacular until I realized the power of ordinary. Ordinary does not mean unimportant, and so today I want to share my story because I want to proudly own it. It's made me who I am, and it continues to shape who I'm going to be. I got married really young in Pakistan in a rather conservative culture where marriages are completely arranged and insanely awkward. And so at a time when I was still discovering who I was handed the added responsibility to find out who my partner was. And so very quickly, I also realized that as a young married woman straight out of undergrad, I did not have many work opportunities or the kind of work I could take up. The choices were really narrow and limited. So for example, long hours and traveling jobs, they were a no-go zone for me. But I knew I had to pave my own path, and I did that by taking up a career in international development. And I was doing well until in 2016, my partner decided that we had to make the big move to Australia, a country I had only ever heard the name of and didn't know much else about. The initial struggle was really tough on the senses and the nerves because we have no friends and family here. And as luck would have it, I conceived my little one shortly after. So you can imagine, amidst raging pregnancy hormones and being a new immigrant, it was really, really hard. So much so that we actually decided to return to Pakistan. And then 4 long years passed in Pakistan, rather painfully slow. And that was a very, very dark and isolating time for me, because I was overpowered by feelings of worthlessness. I was still out of work, and I was a primary carer for my young son. Until in the middle of the pandemic, or so we thought was the middle of the pandemic, June 2020, I decided I was no longer going to be a passive character in my own story. So that was the day I decided to apply for a master's program here at UNSW, which has allowed me to speak to you all today, telling my story. So here I am, a new immigrant, a full-time student, still in the middle of a pandemic, still very much unemployed, and I'm also an exhausted mom. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going strong. I have big dreams and hopes for my future. And so if there's one thing I want to tell you all today, it is this, that you are the lead character of your story. And as the hero of your story, you must never think of your struggles and achievements as anything less than extraordinary, because yours is the most important ordinary story you will ever live to tell. Thank you.
Okay. We're in this together. First of all, on behalf of the Postgraduate Council, the President, the Vice President, and the entire team of PGC, I'd like to appreciate all our speakers for your inspiring stories here today. Your ability to share your story in such an inspiring atmosphere, emotion, and passion has made today one of the most memorable evenings for PGC history. A hand of applause for you. I would love to say that your stories have inspired each and every one of us in this hall. Your stories of your culture, your land, your heritage, your tradition is engraved in our heart. Especially for those who use slides, we couldn't have known about your people. But today at UNSW, we got to know about those on the other side we wouldn't have ever met in life. Once again, on behalf of PGC, I would love to say a very big thank you for sharing your experience and your story here today. And for our audience, thank you for your support, for coming around to listen to these wonderful stories here today. And again, to the judges, thank you so much for your time and effort for supporting this initiative. I also love to use this opportunity to thank the Postgraduate Council, the office bearers, counselors, and the PGC Working Committee. Thank you so much for your expertise and experience you brought to the table for making this event a huge success. Not the least, our parent body ARC. We are so much thankful for all your support, your advice, for making this event memorable for Postgraduate Council and for UNSW community. And finally, I would love to thank the EDI for their support through the EDI Anti-Racism Grant, supporting this program. Above all, I hope to share my story next year. Because standing here, listening to these wonderful stories, I have something to share next year. And I hope ARC, the Postgraduate Council, UNSW will continue this initiative so that I'll have that opportunity to stand in front of people like you next year to share my wonderful story from Africa. Once again, thank you so much, and a hand of applause for you.
Can I just say on behalf of all of the judges that it was an absolute privilege to be here tonight. We were just blown away by all of the stories that were told, the absolute diversity of people who are up here. We had the most fantastic time, and I should say we found it just near impossible making a decision. I think if you look at the distribution of our grades, then there was a lot of grade inflation that was going on just because we found all of the stories so wonderful. So just a big congratulations to everyone who was here this evening. But we do have our prizes, and I might start with the People's Choice Award. So the People's Choice goes to Salma. Okay, now third place. Now, we had a really difficult decision in third place, so just to buck the trend, we have decided to award a joint third place. So in third place, we have Alisa and Danladi. Okay, in second place, and I hope I give this correctly, is for Jie. And our first place tonight, this was a very hard decision, but in first place is Pallavi.